You are welcome to the Business Lens on Rapid Television, Abuja. It is great to have you here with us on this beautiful edition where we are to look at the numbers, the figures, and how it directly affects you and your business. I am Divine Alex. So let's begin with the key business trends that matter right now, starting from the headline. A new World Bank report says smarter water management across agriculture could help feed a global population of 10 billion by 2050, while creating up to 245 million long-term jobs, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, warning that current systems can only support less than half of global food demand if left unchanged. We move to the next one that says the federal government has launched the IDICE Startup Bridge to support over 500 Nigerian startups, offering up to 10 million naira in grants for early stage founders and $100,000 equity funding for growth stage businesses as part of efforts to boost innovation, create jobs, and expand access to capital in the tech and creative sectors. To the next story that says the federal government says Nigeria will now need over $100 billion in investment across the power sector to achieve stable 24-hour electricity, with about $30 billion required for 20,000 megawatts generation, $20 billion for transmission, $25 billion for distribution, and $22 billion for gas infrastructure, as authorities admit current supply challenges and promise gradual improvements. To the next that says Nigeria is stepping up oil exploration efforts as the NUPRC signs a 3-year license with a company to acquire new 3D seismic data across 11,700 square kilometers offshore in the eastern Niger Delta, which is a move that is aimed at unlocking deeper reserves and attracting future investment into the sector. And Nigeria is also ramping up its digital infrastructure push, opening over $6 million in contracts under a World Bank-backed project to support broadband expansion as part of a broader plan to deploy 90,000 kilometers of fiber optic network nationwide and boost connectivity skills and the digital economy. And to the next that says the Central Bank of Nigeria has approved 100% repatriation of export proceeds for international oil companies, allowing them full access to their foreign exchange earnings in a move, that is aimed at boosting FX liquidity and stabilizing the naira as part of a broader market reforms. And still in the market, Nigeria's capital importation rose to $6.44 billion in Q4 of 2025, marking a 26.61% increase year-on-year and a 7.13% rise from the previous quarter, as stronger portfolio investments and banking sector activity continue to drive a recovery in foreign inflows. We'll be looking at those stories and more on today's edition after the break. My name is Divine Alex. Stay with us. You are welcome back. This is still the Business Lens from Rapid Television, Abuja. My name is Divine Alex. Now, taking together the headlines I gave you, today's development point to a global and domestic economy at a critical turning point, where bold investments, policy reforms, and innovation funding are meeting long-standing structural challenges in food security, in energy, infrastructure, and capital flow. The question now is whether these initiatives will translate into real, sustained impact on livelihoods and growth, or whether they will remain ambitious targets on paper. And joining me on today's conversation is the first one, Daniel Efa, a global business analyst. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you here today physically. Good morning. Yeah. And we also have economist Abiola Adekunle from Key to Markets. I did good, right?
Well, good,
good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you here. Okay, so you saw when I talked about the headlines, a few of the trends that we have right now, but I'm going to be starting with the World Bank that is suggesting that current water and agriculture systems can only support less than half of global food demand without reform. Now, how urgent do you think we need this?
Well, when it comes to food and global hunger and everything, personally for me, I feel there is more of propaganda than the actual facts. Okay. And the reason for me is that when you understand the way capitalism works, which a lot of countries in the world operate by, you would understand that control is a whole lot. And if you can control what somebody eats to a very large extent, you can actually control the person. Because if I tell you I will not give you food if you don't, I'm coming to what you asked. I'm just trying to build a base.
Okay.
So I personally don't feel that whatever is obtainable right now is not sufficient for us. Case study Nigeria.
Okay.
A lot of people don't get as much food to eat in Nigeria as necessary, but the issue in Nigeria is not the farming or the production of the food. If you look at it properly, you find out that the value chain of the whole production is one of the major problems. Okay, now we have a lot of food glut, you know, when there's harvest. We have the case of Benin sometimes where you see that there's a lot of harvest production, but the food is not being bought because there is a saturation, and that food cannot be transported to other parts of Nigeria.
Okay.
So would you now say for Nigeria that the problem is that the waterways or whatever we have is not enough to feed Nigerians, or is it that the food and the value chain of food production is not adequately being structured to feed Nigerians? For me, that is the question. So it's not about only the fact that we don't have enough to produce what we need to eat. It's about the fact that there's excess in some areas that we need to find a way for those excesses to actually go around.
Okay, now let me come to you, Daniel. Now, what role do you think the government should do to make sure that we are able to like get this done, and we're, you know, still be able to pull in the private investors to also assist the government in making sure that this gap is closed before 2050?
So I think, so just like you said, there's a lot of dynamics to food conversation globally, right? While some parts of the world, they've gotten it right, they're just looking for better or more improved ways of increasing productivity or production of food. Some other parts of the world are also not getting it right. For example, now, by 2050, most likely Africa will be the most populous country, populous continent in the world, right? And what that means is that it is important, again, it is more of a state of emergency for African countries to begin to produce at least 75% of their food, right? So if that is the case, then whatever the World Bank is saying might not necessarily trickle down to Africa. Africa's major problem is that it doesn't even produce enough food, right? And not producing enough food has to now do a lot with policies, get structure, so many other components. So the report, yes, talks about how improve water approach and all, because then climate change is sitting in deep. We don't even know what the climate will look like in 2050. Exactly. So then it is now a big case of how do we tailor these issues peculiar to different sector, different geographical locations, and how everybody can now be a major. Because then, if you say no, some people can decide not to produce food. When it gets to a point when the population of the world maybe doubles, it gets to a point that it's no longer. It now becomes food becomes so expensive because of the high demand that it now becomes almost what's the word? A warfare kind of between countries that I can seize food supply, and you guys are going to beg and going to cede your sovereignty. So as not to get to that point, it's important that food, energy. These are conversations that are security conversations, that it's not just something that the World Bank report should be. It should be a term paper. It should be something countries would use as a template of whatever they want to achieve in here. So it is now left for the government, just like you asked, that to now say, okay, this is what our food direction would be, right? It is before now we have our previous governments in Nigeria had food direction. We had in the 70s we had policies that were directed towards this is what food, right? So, but now that we are seeing conscience is just diverting. Everybody's looking for energy revenue and all. Nobody's focusing on what is really important, which is survival of your people. If people are eating, first things first, you can now begin to work on any other policies that affect their daily life. So it's important that government, because private sectors will never come into a space that the government is not taking charge in. It's not possible. Okay,
now when you were speaking, you mentioned policies. What specific policy failures do you think led us to the inefficiency of water that is now affecting our agriculture and thereby making the whole food thing a little bit difficult for us?
I think that over the last 20, 30 years, industries have caused more harm in terms of sustainability of anything, whether it is fishes in the sea, whether it is clean water for people to consume, and what we are basically seeing now is that we are at the point whereby we are looking at survival. What are we trying to hold on to the more? Are we trying to keep advancing technology and industries, and the waste keeps contaminating the water, or we are looking for different technical ways of actually improving water conditions that can thereby improve food, whether it is aquatic food or the one that we consume, that we produce on land. So any of those conversations is a function of our deliberate attack or misuse of water resources. So now that there is a report that says there is a likelihood this will affect us in the next 20, 30 years, everybody has to sit up and now begin to deliberately work towards ensuring clean water, ensuring water that is sustainable enough, right, for all organisms or any plants or animals that we need for survival in the future. So it is now a what's the word now? A deliberate approach by everybody to say, okay, this is the plan, right? And it becomes laws should start coming up from this, right, that will protect the water bodies, and also that we can keep having that survival that is important.
Okay, before I head to the next one, I want to come to you, Economist Abiola. Now, when we talk about issues, we talk about the government's part. Sometimes we even drag in the private sector to come in. But many times, people don't even understand that they also have a role to play. What role do you think people can? Because in a case where the government is not looking like they're going to assist us, we all have to find a way to be able to, survive. So what role, or how do you think people should go about this?
For individuals, and which are still largely private sector driven, I think that sensitization is a very major role, because we're in the information age, and you find out that what you don't know, you would abuse eventually. I will tell you for free that illegal mining, for example, in Nigeria, is affecting a lot of our waterways. There was a guy that did an analysis last year on Twitter, and he was doing the analysis based on the color of the popular River Niger all the way down south, and how the color has changed over time, and that the color has now become muddied, like, being brownish, compared to years and decades before that, which he was implying that this signifies a lot of illegal mining and people dumping their stuff down onto the river. So this, you will see, would have an accumulating effect, eventually on the quality of the water that is coming out. So I think if people are sensitive, or sensitized rather, to what should be done that eventually will affect them, they would take other course of actions. For example, I saw a cartoon recently on social media, and the cartoon was like, you throw away nylons, bottled water, remnants on the road. Then it showed the next panel, it blocks the old sewage. Then it showed the next panel, there's flood everywhere. Then the same person that threw away the bottled water remnant was now complaining of the flood. That why is everywhere flooded? Why the government is not doing anything? But you were the one that threw away everything that was. So I believe that if people know more about cause and effect, then we would have a better attitude change, which will lead us to maybe protecting the water bodies and ecosystem at the end of the day.
Okay, that is really great. Now, let's head to the IDI's story, with Nigeria's IDI Startup Bridge offering up to 10 million grants, 10 million naira, and $100,000 equity funding for startups. Now, do you think that funding alone is going to help build sustainable tech, and then maybe help us with creative businesses in Nigeria?
You cannot. There's a popular saying that you cannot innovate your way out of poverty.
Okay.
Not the way people think about it. Of course, you can create innovations that can actually remove poverty, But what we're saying is that if some foundations are not there, you cannot, based on innovation, fintech, and all these things, be able to redirect the course or the direction in which the people are going. For example, let's assume a country does not have power. no matter the amount of innovations in fintech that you do, it will be based on power, or in AI that needs power a lot. So at the end of the day, you might have crazy innovations, good innovations, but if the basics are not there, then that creativeness, that creativity might not really take root. So in as much as this is a laudable project and it's fantastic, and I look forward to seeing a lot of good stuff come out of it, but we still need to lend our voice a whole lot to the basics, because when somebody has not eaten, he cannot fight. Do you understand? There's a progression in some things in life. So this is fantastic. Maybe even me, I'll apply, but we still need to have the conversations about the basic stuffs.
Okay, now let me come to you, Daniel. Do you think that this initiative can realistically move Nigeria from startup hype to startup scale?
Okay, so as I was talking, I thought about it. Like, okay, so you get a 10 million grant and 8 million to construct a solar panel and everything. It just tells you how.
No, 7.5.
7.5. Okay. So I think that to be sincere, this concept, I think we don't lack it in Nigeria. I can count 10 different intervention funds like this. Startup this, Shopee that. So many. Like we have names. We have very good names of which we know how to name those policies. But how many of those policies have directly? Maybe there's a report somewhere that these are the businesses we supported. This is what they've done. This is report.
How many of them are alive to today?
Exactly. So that is the only way you give yourself motivation to say, okay, yes, these new policies coming up, and it will most likely hit the nail on the head. So
based on data.
There is nothing. We see at a point whereby Nigeria has a vibrant, youthful population that can compete with anybody in the world.
Yes.
Basic facts. Forget about our education.
Yes.
They can compete anywhere in the world. So what the only difference is that their counterparts all over the world do not have better infrastructure than they do. So why can't we just focus on the next 10, 15, 25 years to set up quality infrastructure for the people? Let the youth population do their thing. A lot of what we have, whether it is entertainment, is in Nollywood, it is streaming, are just Nigerians that just feel like we can do these things too, and they are competing properly.
Yeah, making a lot of money
without anybody's support. So what they only need is, how can I have a streaming location and I'm spending 30, 40, 50,000, 200,000, 300,000 a day to put power in that place? That is the issue. And if you can solve that issue, you don't need to give 100 people on 10 million to do anything. You just need to. So even if yes, we cannot solve power problem in a single phase, just like the Mr. Power says, we need $100 billion. Why not create a cluster zone?
Exactly, I was coming to that. You read my mind. I just wanted you to finish.
Okay, so if you are in this axis, if you are in Lagos Island, this is a cluster zone. If you have solutions around streaming platform, you are a streamer, you are a TikToker. This is where you are. You rent a place for like maybe 2,500 a day or 3,000 a day. Do your thing, make your money. You pay your taxes right there. It makes more sense that the government is now contributing. So you give these guys the money, the business goes from 8 to it's collapsed. You are saying that no, they are chasing them to pay the money back.
Yeah, a lot of people have been receiving debit alert from COVID loans now, and a lot of people are like, I did not know it's a loan. Somebody applied for me. I said, okay, you go pay your money back, because at the end of the day, you took the loan. Now, to buttress and expand on what Daniel said, apart from the fact that you're talking about cluster like virtual spaces where people can go to and do their stuff, we can also have power and infrastructure clusters. And I've always been an advocate of this, that states can even use it to woo people to their state. For example, Akwa Ibom can wake up today now and say, okay, in this area in Akwa Ibom or in Uyo, we are going to guarantee 24/7 power. It's an industrial cluster. This is a tech cluster. When you live in this area, guaranteed you have 24/7 power supply. And what will be the effect? The effect is that people will now gravitate towards that, because the time you spend thinking and trying to solve power problems alone can be used into other creative measures. Even as an individual, you're going home, you're already thinking, is there fuel in the gen? As the inverter run out, all that time that you use in talking about and thinking about that, you can remove it completely and devote that time to something productive. So this will do well, much more better, if the basics are in place.
Okay, now this conversation has taken us to the power story, because at the end of the day, there's no how that we are not going to have, talk about the drama with the power sector, the energy and everything. But before we go deeper to start having this conversation, let's listen to, just a tiny bit of what we got from the Minister of Power's press briefing on Tuesday. Let's take a look.
2023 and 2025, Indian power sector has undergone significant transformation characterized by policy liberalization, capacity expansion, and improved grid performance. While notable progress has been achieved at the system level, continued reforms, particularly in distribution and last-mile delivery, are essential to translate these gains into reliable and affordable electricity for all Nigerians. So, I would recommend that accelerated distribution sector recapitalization, a lot of funds is required in that sector, in that segment. Expansion of metering deployment nationwide will continue what we have started. We will even accelerate to make sure that every household, every institution, every company, every industry, every business has a meter with which they can measure their consumption. And we need to strengthen enforcement of performance contracts. There must be firm contracts among the players in the power sector. Contract between the gas supplier and the generating company. And contract between the generating company, transmission company, between transmission company and distribution company. And we must respect this contract. We need to sustain investment in transmission infrastructure. This requires a lot of investment, given the size of Nigeria, and we must be able to sustain it. And enhance renewable energy integration. That is the way to go. We have an energy transition plan that's targeting carbon neutrality by year 2060. And we believe we are on our way to achieving this. This is Nigeria power sector, and we will do everything possible to ensure that we give Nigerians 24/7 electricity supply with time.
Okay, so you heard that, and I wanted to get your thoughts before I proceed to asking this question. And while you're at it, I would also want you to go back to the whole 10 billion naira plus the $100,000 equity funding. Do you think that if this is channeled, because since they are already asking for $100 billion, right? Do you think if we're able to move this fund, instead of putting it into tech, creative businesses and startups, if they are to push this in here, do you think it is going to solve at least 60% of our issues? Or even if it's 50-50, I think
there's something he said, which is a very important line, or the last line. And I think you missed that. He said with time. With time. But the 100 billion coming is not with time. They want that one now. But you get power with time. So with time is not defined. Okay. Even in physics, it's not defined. It's like saying Jesus is coming soon. Yes, dot. Yes. So the time is not defined. Okay. If this can be achieved, which I can assure you has been a lingering problem since I was born. Okay. In the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, there have always been a power issue. I, for one person, didn't understand when I was in secondary school what was the major issue with our power sector, because I've always seen and heard all the promises. There's never been a time while I've been alive that power has been constant all over Nigeria. Let me just be generous and say for a month, because some people will argue even for 24 hours that it does not exist. Now, one of the first things I noticed is that our power is centralized to a very large extent. Of course, I know that there are places that have their own gencos and discos, but to a very large extent, we still get power from one source, which I've always said is a security problem. Because if, as a country, your power generation, more than 50% is coming from one location, it is an easy target for security reasons. You shouldn't have that. Now, secondly, the monies they're asking for, is it to rebuild our power from the scratch? Because that, it seems like people don't understand what $100 billion is. 1 billion naira, I've said it several times, can fill up this room. 1 billion naira will fill up this room in currency notes. So you're asking for 100 billion. Are you trying to rebuild power totally afresh? Number two, we already have, to a very large extent, very good distribution. That means that houses are wired. You hardly find a house in an urban center that does not have electric wiring. So that is out of the way. If it has electric wiring, it means there is a pole. It means there's a feeder. It means somewhere there's that 3 kVA somewhere. So that means the distribution is already accounted for. The major issue now is that what will feed into that distribution is not there. There is no power to feed into the distribution. And that is where I feel that the focus should be. The focus should be on Gencos. And if you remember, Gencos have been complaining that they are being owed and they are accumulating 200 billion naira per month because a lot of government ministries, parastatals and agencies are not paying. So the first thing we need to go into is, where do we get power to feed into the discourse? Decentralize it and make sure that people can. This is 2026.
Okay, to be fair, I think I was there at the press briefing and then he said something that they've been able to achieve the decentralization of power.
So why does the grid collapsing affect you and me? If it has been decentralized, then it should no longer be a news. If grid collapses, nobody should care. Sorry to say, but if somebody has an accident on a road, let's say going to Kubwa, God forbid, and the road is closed, it might not necessarily be a headline for the whole country because it's just a road in Abuja. But if that's the only road in Nigeria, then it will be an headline. Do you understand what I'm saying? So why do we always talk about the grid collapsing till this year if it has been decentralized? So going back to what I'm saying, we need to find a way. It's just copy and paste. These things are working in other places all around the world. So why is it a problem for it to work here? That's one of the things that makes me believe that the problem really, most of the time, is not what we think it is. Okay. This problem is not what we think it is. Now, I've told you before on this show, sorry I'm taking your time, I've told you on this show before that an average Nigerian has become a government to themselves. And the last frontier now that a lot of people are trying to break is power. Because people have become their waterboard. There was a time that police used to patrol all our area when I was growing up. You would hear police siren in the night, just patrolling. When was the last time you heard that? Now people are employing vigilante for themselves. Cluster themselves up in estates to be security unto themselves. Now they have now started to do power. Now the level is getting to now is that everybody is doing solar for themselves. Because people are just winning themselves off of the government because the basic things the government are meant to provide, they are not. Even Asorok is going there. If you guys cannot do what you are meant to do, just give me solar, please. Baba does not want anybody to disturb me.
Okay, let me come to you, Daniel. What do you make of this situation? Because I also remember that he mentioned that for electricity in Nigeria to actually power very well, we need at least 75. Okay, I think he said 75% of our plants is powered by gas, and we have 25%, which is water. And now there's a global shortage, and which is forcing the gas suppliers to, supply to the global markets more than they're selling to us, because according to him, we are, buying at, I think, $3 something cents, and then other people are like going above $10 something cents, which is not making it difficult for them to supply gas to us. And this is one of the major reasons why we are having these issues. At least for the past 4 weeks or 5 weeks now, we've been facing this issue. Now, while you are at it, giving me your comment, I would also want you to tilt towards the gas part, because these people are being owed a certain amount of money, and plus the fact that we now have the global shortage, and it's looking like they are now offering more money than us here. How do you think we can be able to wiggle our way out of this situation to at least help people and the government too, since we're also trying to hold them by the neck to do what they're supposed to do? Okay,
so basically in Nigeria, right? Okay. If every other place there's 1 + 1 is 2, I think Nigeria, you have to understand the fact that 1 + 1, they will tell you that there is a likelihood that it is not 2, or the way it will become 2 is not normal. You have to think a whole lot.
It depends on the time of the day.
On the time of the day. So,
okay.
So, when we start saying we need $100 billion, it just gives me the impression like, just like me telling my child, don't worry, you are going to Harvard. Don't worry. One day, somebody just come give me a contract, and you use that money. That's basically what it looks like. So my question is, what we have now? What are we doing? What we have now? We can produce 12 capacity. All we have so capacity is about 12,000 right now. You want Nigerians to see it as a business that no, it is not a public good anymore. It is something that globally everybody pays the right amount for. Nobody is arguing that, because an average Nigerian, an average household already has 3 alternative sources, and they pay optimally for those sources normally. So it has never been about Nigerians cannot pay. It has always been about you are not delivering what you're meant to deliver. So if I have a business, I have a factory that can produce 200 bags of pure water daily, right? And I'm only producing 20.
Okay.
And I'm still complaining that those people cannot pay for the 20. I've not even produced the 200. I've not even pushed my product to the market. And the fact that your product is almost guaranteed that people will buy, almost guaranteed. Because these people that are moving away from your grid, they don't have the money to, but then they are looking at the cost implication. Nobody really has the money to set up a solar because it's a bulk, it's a big bulk. So they're looking at, if I'm spending this amount and it's not even there, why can't I just do this? That's basically what it's. So at the end of the day, their marginal cost over time is reduced because whatever you're producing is not quality enough. So why not focus on producing quality products first before telling people whether they can pay or not? That is one. Number two, it's also a public good because it has proven over time that power has been the bedrock of industrial nations again in times past. So why not just also ensure that because of the industries that would blossom because of power infrastructure that will create the power. Now this is the fear. The fear now is that who wants to give 100 billion when almost the people that are capable of paying are leaving your grid already? Yeah. Virtually every company now that is industrial, even banks. Yeah. I saw a bank in Lagos panels.
Exactly. The whole bank is covered in solar panels.
So
they are off grid.
So now imagine that kind of bank. Now I'm sure other banks are also thinking it.
Towards that
I saw one of my friends installed a solar panel for a ministry in Lagos. So ministries, Asorok is doing it. Ministries is doing it. So who will pay for the who will pay for the power when you finally
$1 billion? $1 billion is 1.5 trillion naira. Just to give you an idea.
So they are looking for 150 trillion naira.
So how much is our budget? The whole country's budget.
So the conversation for me is simple. Efficiency and effectiveness, you don't exchange it for anything in any field, no matter the level of technicality they might bring up. I don't care, because they're talking about gas, for example. Now, this is not a gas you are buying from
Nigeria has gas. So
this is
more
gas
than crude oil.
Nigeria.
More than crude oil, we have gas.
So this is gas made in Nigeria. We flare gas virtually every day,
non-stop.
The quantity of gas we flare is enough for the supply of what we are doing. So how can you tell me they are selling to other people, because it means that you're not paying? That's what it means. If someone is telling me that because I'm getting resources from your farm, but I'm saying no, because I'm selling to other people, I will not give you. It's because you're not paying. You're not paying what you're meant to pay. If you are paying what you're meant to pay, there is no way this will not get to you. You're saying that you pay a lot of subsidies, but do you even pay the ones that you've owed? You don't pay. The power you consume, you don't pay. So
I was even about coming to the subsidies, because I wanted to ask, because I think they are owed around 6 trillion naira, and from his explanation, when they supply gas, we at least give them at least 35%, and then later they start paying, which I think a normal business person who is trying to supply something, you have two customers, one is ready to pay you cash and carry, and the other one you have to pay by installment. You're going to, it's usually natural that you tilt towards the person who is going to give you your money at hand. Now, how do you think we came around this? Okay,
right? If you've been complying, even when someone says I'm paying you later, businesses.
But that later you keep to
exactly.
It.
A lot of these
they'll give you.
A lot of these gas contracts are in futures. You're saying that yes, I'm paying you so date, and you pay so date. Everybody
there's no issue.
Because if I can take it to the bank and get a bank guarantee because of that. But then if you don't meet up, you don't pay 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you are owing them. Who does that business like that?
What I'm trying to say at the end of the day is that I don't think that more money is the problem.
Exactly. Which I
throw money at it, come back the next 20 years, we'll be having this conversation. I don't think more money is the problem of our power sector. Because if you look at the money that has been pumped into it for the past 3-4 decades, we should even be selling power. That the power should be too much. I remember when solar started coming into Nigeria, because the power, they were not really sure of the market then, I know, if you remember, when solar companies from outside the country then were giving people pay small.
Yeah.
They'll come and install solar for you. They'll tell you to, I'm telling the Chinese were doing it, other countries were doing it. But now they've seen the demand. If you don't have your money, my friend, go away.
It is a serious
That is
market.
true. Okay, I wish we could have this conversation, but I think we have to talk about this power and electricity extensively on Monday, so that we'll also see if we can pull somebody from the Minister of Power to see how we could, you know, have an extensive conversation and find a way around it. But right now, this is the end of today's edition of the Business Lens on Rapid Television Abuja. Thank you so much, Economist Abiola and Daniel Elfa, for being on the show. My name is Divine Alex. Do not forget to stay with Rapid TV. Bye for now.